I don't know. Big cliff. That's what we had to study. Look, right here. See this stuff?
What?
See how this whole rock is swirled and bent? The layers?
I love that.
It's crazy. This has Ogham in it, dude. There's carbon on this. Here?
What's Ogham?
It's an ancient... it's from ancient, like, Irish. Ireland.
Oh, it sounds like it.
That's Ogham. The downward striations right here. It's all Ogham.
I'm gonna go over my notes. Really quick. I'm gonna put my jacket on.
More up here. It's a land claim. Hello, all you happy lost souls. How y'all doing out there? Up for some mystery and intrigue surrounding my research and collection that has been ongoing for like 15, 16 years. But it just keeps on baffling me. All of what you see here comes from just a few streams. 90% of the collection comes from the Pennypack watershed tributaries and Wissahickon and its tributaries. So I have videos up about the lost silver mines, about the Susquehannocks, and then about these sites, even more ancient finds that go past the archaic into the speculative areas, things that are more Neanderthal in their percussion design and in their material. Things like, things like this that are made out of an obsidian that are struck and flaked at an edge that is still razor sharp right there, and you can see the thumb grips, the finger grips. But to just find this in Eastern PA in a context that actually allowed me to put a little bit of time on it. There was a larger piece found that there's some still photos of and other videos that my friend has in her collection. Two tools that are just crazy in their function. You've got a handle back here. You've got a saw edge here. You've got another cutting edge here. You've got another edge there. And then you've got an auging end, drilling end, boring end. It's this crazy all-in-one chert woodworking tool. Down alongside this chert thumb razor. Found with this like semi-precious alabaster slash, it's similar to almost a garnet, but it's a saw. The edge is kind of, serrated, but it's a little worn, but you see that perfect angle. So it's not only is it a saw, it's a wedge. It could be a chopping tool. These are found at, that site in the Pennypack that I quote unquote with the quotes call the Solutrean quarry site, along with tons of different archaic tools, tools that are Solutrean in shape, Solutrean in design, as far as these crazy amounts of different scraping and clothing, textile working tools. But the point is, it's thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years of different activity at these same sites. And I recently posted a video when I was walking through the Wissahickon, and I got really excited because the geology, that was a prime example of the exposed layer of mantle that was pushed up during, the Atlantic plate colliding with the continental plate. That's what creates the waterfalls and crazy geology. And this material right here, like this crazy Thor-like hammer, this thing weighs at least 15 pounds, and this is a material that only really exists in this area, and is called Wissahickon schist. It's named after the area. This material can be cut and carved easily, but then if it is heated, it becomes this crazy ceramic that is as strong as metal, just about. It's got crazy different metals and elements in it. Iron, different types and grades of iron that are equivalent to meteoritic iron. They don't rust. They're super strong. A lot of nickels. You see this book here. This is a saga, the Vinland sagas, and the early Norse explorers that discovered, or not discovered, but hit or found a great big old continent that they wrote about because they got back. And we recently, in the 70s or 60s, I believe, did the discovery of Longsong Meadows, which in this saga, written in their bardic tongues, are essentially says, yeah, we call this place Newfoundland, and there's Longsong Meadows. So we found that settlement. Vinland, though, is the other place they talk about. Obviously, they were very literal in their place names. So Vinland, the place of vines or grapes, a place probably further south in Canada, maybe New York, Connecticut, Massachusetts, or maybe even Pennsylvania, who knows. But the last video, there was a video I got excited with when I was walking on the trail to one of the most famous spots along the Wissahickon, known as Devil's Pool today. The natives talked about it. As long as the written and oral tradition goes back for that area, that pool has been this geological feature that has been worshipped, revered, or at least some spiritual energy around it. This Ogham found in Wissahickon is interesting because it's really, really old. Because the thing I did take note of is, with my macro lens on my camera while I was there, the weathering inside was at least as old as the weathering outside on the rock on the inside of those Ogham. And Ogham means to strike a surface with metal, or to strike hard with metal into a surface. And with rock, you'd have to use a metal tool. So that's one thing we can check off the list. And Native Americans did have access to copper and metal tools as well. So it's just the form of Ogham that is on there is not a native script like a Mesoamerican or Mayan intricate type of multi-syllabic codic meaning, but it is more of an ancient Irish type, your Gaelic, Juratic, Celtic language that kind of centered around 15 characters, and they were all sounds, phonetic sounds and syllables and symbols, as well as place names for trees. Each symbol, call it the ancient Celtic tree alphabet. But really, what this was is an early codex kept by a group known as the Druids, this mysterious group, and there's all these misnomers wrapped around them. Really, all we have, the rest is anecdotal. Only thing we have that is written was Caesar's account, which, being an invader, can be quite biased, but in all actuality, he describes the Druids as a class of wise people, essentially the academic, the nerds of the Celtic group. So this powerful group of thinkers, hippies, nerds, noodles, whatever you want to call them, of their day, that were respected by almost everybody. The Romans, for the amount of ancient wisdom and power they possessed from this knowledge. And a weird thing with Druids is they weren't keen to really writing things down, even though they were literate, and they were pretty much the only literate people of their group. The Celts, which is a vast group. You're talking about northern Italy, Germany, obviously Scotland, the Picts, the Gauls, the Gauls. That's your North Italy and German. These were all Celts. England, Britain, before the Anglo-Saxons, is all before that time period, and right about that time period. So this type of Ogham found on the wall in the Wissahickon in that, little post I put up was a little bit newer. I mean, because there was some proto-runic syllables mixed in that are grown over by moss, and I have to go back and get a better look, but the ones I could make out, one looked like a modern 3 with a line through the outside of the 3. And then you have a symbol that looks like a Roman P, and then a symbol that looks like a treble on a music, like the bass treble on a music clef on the scale, with like a R-looking symbol. These can phonetically be translated into that 3 with a line is a runic and also Ogham expression for birch or birch tree, but also make the sound bear. The next letter, that P, is a representation of J-A sound, but means a new place, a new discovery, a place of new hope or new birth or new light, or new beginnings. Then the next symbol, that weird clef, is a combination syllabic of E-A, and then followed by that little squiggle and a long bar at the end mark the notion of K. So you have something like B, J, O, umlaut, O with the 2 dots over top. So B, J, O with the 2 dots, R, E, A, K. And that's how we would kind of sound the word out. Bjorrock. Or Bjorgerock. Or, in their literal naming senses, Birch Rock. It's kind of the place name. And I think all the other crazy amounts of Ogham, denote it, like think of their periods and commas as those triangles that go one way or the other after the the slashes in the Ogham. They actually use the natural geology crazy swirled layers, those mesomorphic mantle that was exposed. They used those lines to their advantage as their long lines in their Ogham. Because Ogham, and I'll post some pictures up with this clip, Ogham is just a lot of just groups of slashes, up or down, depending on what side of the line they fall on, top or bottom or side to side, whether the Ogham is vertical or horizontal. Denotes what letter characteristic of the 15 there are. And there's more advanced Ogham. There's ways to represent numbers, which we don't have a really great idea of. So, but I believe there's like that cartouche thing that's circled in the right corner. That's a series of aggressive chopping in different depths. I believe that this is a date or a stamp. I think it's the names of the people in a small party traveling that marked the area, a claim, named the area, and really it was a claim for wood, I believe, because you know what a Viking is without a boat? He's a farmer. And their greatest strengths were in ship making, and they need trees for that. I believe it was another group similar to this that came a bit earlier. Could have been a traveling bard from Wales, and I believe the bards were after a few of the druid, secrets carried on and was kept alive, the secret fraternity of wise men. Who knows, if you want to think outside of the box, like I like to do a lot. I have videos up about all these crazy, stone structures all up the east coast of, northeast coast of America that we don't know about, and consists about 3 or 4 times more effort than the pyramids took to construct, and no one just talks about it, but very eerily reminiscent of the hill fort days of, pre-Roman conquest of the Picts and these crazy cairns and long walls and chambers. And matter of fact, right on that trail in the Wissahickon, right after that spot where the Ogham is, you go up this crazy, like, man-made looking, but placed with natural stones, this little staircase. It bends around, and there's another crazy, like, mountainous rock outcropping with a rock shelter. But what's interesting is there are two long posts that would have held a mantle stone to create something that looked like the things in Stonehenge. So that would have been the entrance, but the mantle stone has been removed, it looks like, and the two pieces that held the mantle stone fell on each other and held each other up like a triangle for the opening of this chamber. Right after this chamber is Devil's Pool, that crazy geological feature I told you about. What's interesting, and what I want to talk mainly about it in this video, is the parallels between the spiritual beliefs of the Celts and the Native Americans at the time. And it might just be parallel beliefs, or it could be something deeper. Maybe both of these cultures working with stone, being so intimate with the knowledge of nature and the energies, had a wisdom and a way to communicate and maybe even travel that we have lost and have no idea of now. But because both of these cultures were both in tune with the same things and working with the same materials, they both reached the same magic powers, magic quote-unquote powers, or wisdoms amongst their shamanic class of people in the Celtic, in the Celtic culture, it would have been the Druids, and in Native American, it would have been shamans. These are all shamanic type classes, though. But I believe personally that the Druids got their power as a class because they were the first master navigators, first people that understood celestial navigation and planning for crops, for cultivation, literally the thing that kept everyone alive, eating and food. So I believe these people knew how to use sextants and knew how to make maps and knew how to create circles that could help a ship get from one continent to another. So it's not a far stretch that these traditions carried on, and into the Dark Ages, they're called that because there's hardly anybody left that was literate except for a group of people, wandering poets named called bards, or the bardic people, who may have or may not have been scooped up by the proto-Viking group looking to find new adventures and heading out towards a place they knew not of and discovering it, but never getting back to write their own saga about Birchland. Now, disclaimer about the Ogham, I don't know if that's what it says. That's my interpretation of it, because Ogham, in its own right, is a bunch of different types of Ogham. Because there are Proto-Germanic runes mixed into it, I can say that it might be later. So maybe 700-800 AD, Common Era, all the way up to 1050, or all the way up to 13 or 1400. Why I say that is because there's a well-known, documented, weird group of, not I wouldn't say weird, but a group of Hermetic German monks that came over here in the mid to late 1500s, I believe, and Kepius, and literally Hermit's Lane off of Henry Avenue, there's still his cave where him and his sect of monks quietly lived and practiced their alchemy rituals to find, as they proclaimed, discovery of the sorcerer's stone, or philosopher's stone, some kind of stone or material that could turn any other material to gold. Terrified of its power, young Kepius went down and destroyed it in the waters of the Wissahickon, somewhere off of Henry Avenue. So, thus the legend. Weird story, I know. You can look it up. I probably have the details a little wrong. You have the lost gold mines of the Wissahickon, this crazy geology, in both the Wissahickon and the Pennypack. Both watersheds overlap. The streams are connected. And you find these pieces of Mayan blue pottery in the Pennypack, along with a bunch of these other types of pottery that you see down in the Mississippi Valley culture. So I believe that this other part of the Susquehannock Iroquois, half Mayan, or that, not Mayan, but that Meso Kahota culture after it fell. But the Proto-Susquehannocks, I believe they were in the area to feed the stone trade. Especially during the archaic periods, you see the same anomalies like places like Poverty Point, where you have these vast amounts of archaic stonework being done, but it's a little bit prior to when agricultural took off, but you see these mounds going up. Susquehannock were mound builders. Their customs overlap Kahota. My quick synopsis on the fall of Kahota and the rise of Kahota, I believe it rose up with the Mayans and the stone trade and the need to supply not only stone, but this really weird type of clay that we find only in a few places. And it's so valuable to the Mayans, Paleogorskite clay, and a combination of that with a plant known as indigo, which grows all over around here. Maryland was literally used to be called indigo. PA is right next to Maryland. Maryland was the main territory of the Susquehannocks, so was Pennsylvania. And their aptitude of working with silver and bronze and making different alloys, like Indian silver, which is this high quality pewter that is mainly silver. Here's like a more higher grade Paleogorskite clay, and you can see the aluminum oxide and the native mercury running through the clay. That only exists when there's a high level of silver and mercury in the area as well. And you see all the native mercury running through. It's this bright pink running through the clay, holding all these other chunks of rock together. Why it's so important and like 10 times more valuable than gold to the Mayans is because that crazy blue paint you see them covering their sacrifices with, this crazy blue color, this indestructible pigment that comes in 15 to 20 different tones. It is made from a ritual performed by Mayans and Olmecs, heating up this clay with small amounts of burnt indigo or plants containing the chemical that creates that shocking blue color. And depending on the amounts of clay, indigo, and heat, you get these different colors. And only the Mayans made it, and we only recently discovered by experimental archaeology how to even make it. And there's been the cenotes of the Mayans, these holes, these limestone caverns filled by by water that they were worshipped. They found just I think 6-7 foot layer of blue, Mayan blue pigment on the bottom that'll never ever be any other color but that shocking color on the bottom of this, along with 127 human skulls, sacrifices, and this paint was so needed, and Paleogorskite was hard to find. It only really exists in the Southwest and along the East Coast, probably only in the Wissahickon watershed, Pennypack watershed, Schuylkill, large deposits of it. So I believe that all this quarrying, you got ancient archaic quarrying, then even maybe the Solutrean quarrying, and then even a more ancient, we're going to call them a chert culture that made very basic non-composite type tools. I thought I had some of them out here. Found some recently when I was out. This is a nice piece of chert here, but it's just a very simple. Actually, I'll find something. This is probably a piece that was quarried to bring back because that's very high grade chert. I don't even think that's chert. That's probably the one that begins with an A. Alabash. God, hate doing these things off the cup. But you see here, it's this very just angled cutter or scraper. It's alabaster. It's this very high grade white chert. But I believe this is being quarried. But it was also being used by these super primitive people that probably were an early hominid that we don't really even know anything about. And you get these bizarre, just that's actually a sharpener there, so I don't want to. Here's one. So you got this piece of chert here, and it's just a simple That's a poker. It's quartz. I don't know what happened to my church tray. These are not the old ones I'm talking about. I'll have to pull that tray out sometime. So I want to get into like this was found in the Wissahickon right by the area where we find where the Ogham was, and we also find these weird this perfect Celt. But what I want to get into is why I call the one site Runestone Beach. But honestly, we find these little game-sized pieces, triangles, circles, squares, and then this shape, which is only one thing, a runestone. And this shape is found all the time. My friend has several of these. Means portal, or a place to port to the next side, an energy, a portal. And that's what I want to get into. Both the Native Americans and the Celts worshipped pools and worshipped heavily creeks-born native from the ground that ran to the ocean, which is the pennypack. I'm going to worship spiritually dark, deep, dead water that flows uphill. Runestone Beach, or Pebble Beach as my friend calls them, we name our little sites along the pennypack, is literally all of these trays of these diamonds, circles, squares. These cool little fire strikers that are also runes. This is a rune here. I forget the exact meaning of this rune, this shape. But it's also, if you look at the edge here, so I have a couple other examples. You see how there's a little piece of flint inlaid in there? It's literally like, I call it a Stone Age lighter, or striker at least. I found this awesome piece, just last week when I was out in the pennypack. And I love it because, you've got this shale arrowhead that's being, this is being pressure flaked by like a tool, like this over here. Where you have a piece of leather and you're pressing down on the sides and you're flaking, but it just wasn't finished. The stem is done, and this is probably woodland, archaic woodland. And then we always find artifacts like stuck in tree roots. So we have both Native Americans and Celts kind of venerating the same sites, and even in the native tradition, the circles and squares and diamonds had spiritual significance as sacred geometry. We got these diamonds, trapezoids, those weird bird-shaped and bow-tie-looking shapes that are way more reminiscent of runes. Was there a meeting, a diffusion taking place, or was it parallel beliefs, or was it an ancient wisdom that we don't know about now, but they were much more in tune with, that we need to learn more about? But these rune-type stones left in obvious spiritual belief or context at these sites, you see, it's very, very mysterious how these cultures parallel. And if you want to get really deep with it, maybe all these stone chambers and dolems and walls, maybe they knew something that we didn't. Maybe they could go in one of these dolems or chambers, meditate, and appear in another dolem or chamber, or maybe talk to another priest metaphysically from one continent to the other. Who knows? I don't know. And maybe it was a shared wisdom between two cultures. These are all speculations, and I like to think outside the box and generate thought. But hey, subscribe, please. Follow me on Instagram. Happy Lost Souls 27 is the handle. Please subscribe, and keep stay tuned. Anyways, thanks, and stay safe out there. Love y'all.